Hey guys, Vince Drummond here, episode 12 of Making the Turn. Just got back from my chat with Dr. Rob Bell. We talked at Dr. Rob's office in Fishers, Indiana. A very cool spot, very lucky to have the chance to go over there and talk with him. Dr. Rob is a sports psychologist and mental toughness coach. He's worked with multiple PGA Tour winners, Web.com Tour winners, as well as Olympians. So a very great guy, great person to talk to. He's also written 6 books on mental toughness. The most recent is No One Gets There Alone. I'll be sure to link the Amazon to that down below. Very excited to get the chance to talk with Dr. Rob, to get the chance to talk through some of the things that he does, some of the things that he believes when it comes to mental toughness and to hinge moments. Also very excited to just get his opinion on how you guys can get better at the mental side of the game. It's one thing that we talk a lot about, but nobody really practices, and so try to get you guys some good tips and things from Dr. Rob that you'll be able to implement and put into practice to help your own games. Without any further ado, this is episode 12 of Making the Turn. Hats forward. Headphones on. Let's go. All right, this is Vince Drummond Golf, your host of the Making the Turn podcast. Really excited to be back for episode 12 today. We have a very special guest, Dr. Rob Bell. Dr. Rob is a sports psychologist and a mental toughness coach. So thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Rob.
Let's get to it, man.
Awesome. So why don't you start by just telling everyone a little bit about yourself, kind of your story, and how you wound up doing what you're doing.
Sure. That's why I asked how long this podcast was. I could go for a long time. I work with athletes and coaches and teams on mental toughness. So basically, like, how do we play our best when it matters the most? And the other part is, how do we handle and deal with the adversity, the setbacks? I got into what I did because I was an athlete that just thought too much. I could never shut off the mind. No one could ever help me out. And when things were good, things were good. But when things got bad, I just had no skills to be able to recover from it. So I was an all or nothing player, the worst type of player. We didn't know who we were going to get, right? Could be Adam Sandler, could be Tom Cruise. No idea who was going to show up. And then, when I got to college, I got off on the wrong track. I was partying a whole lot. I had a really bad injury, and then baseball ended. And it was from that moment on that I found out about whether it was sports psychology, like there were people that could help other people perform their best. And I just knew, when I took that first psychology class as a freshman in college, that's what I want to do the rest of my life. So the one long story was just, there was a decathlete, Dan O'Brien, and back in the 90s, they had these Dan and Dave commercials, Reebok commercials. You can YouTube them, and they're good commercials. So it took the U.S. and made us look at decathlon and root for decathlon. So it's genius. Well, Dan O'Brien's on world record pace just at Olympic trials. The whole commercials were like, who's going to win gold medal in Barcelona? And at just the trials, just to go to the Olympics, Dan O'Brien misses in his pole vault, so he goes from first to last. And I had no idea. I was like, how does that even happen? It doesn't make any sense. I cut that article out. I ran into him, 4 or 5 years ago, and he got a big kick that I still had that article because it was framed. And he started to go see a sports psychologist, a mental coach, someone that would help him with that. And that's same exact time. That's when I knew what I wanted to do.
That's awesome. Talk a little bit about kind of what you are doing now, who you have the opportunity to work with. Are you working with athletes only? Do you work with people in the business world? Are you working with young kids, with professionals? Where are you kind of at when it comes to the psychology and sports psychology space?
Yeah. So, I've worked with the University of Notre Dame. I work with PGA Tour guys. I've always got a handful of players I work with. My real passion is just trying to help people get that hinge moment. I work with executives too. Probably the most recent thing that we've done is just focused more on parents and mostly on sport parents. So what are the behaviors? What are the things that they need to do, and what do they need to stop doing? Because youth sports has really just become professionalized. And like we ask youth sports to do things that pros would never do. Imagine asking a pro, hey, you got to play 4 doubleheaders here in 3 days. Like, we'd never do that stuff, right? But we do that with kids all the time. So it's like really trying to educate the parents on what they can do has been a real big focus. But any kind of elite athlete, man, I just love working with.
That's awesome. And so when you work with juniors, kind of going off topic a little bit, but just relating it more to the golf fitness side of things, which is kind of the world I'm from,
we're trying to get kids to do as many sports as possible, not necessarily specialize early.
Right.
Just be competitive and be athletic. From a mental standpoint, do you think there are benefits to that as well, getting out of that professional track mindset and not focusing on one sport from the time you're 6?
Yeah, no question. I mean, even, most people are going to talk about, biomechanically, which I think is important. I think, no matter what, we need to be an athlete. And being an athlete means that you can pick up a basketball and be able to play. You can pick up a baseball and be able to go play. You can run, swim, jump, all those things. So those skills transfer over, right? All skills transfer. But I'm more interested in the sporting IQ that, you, by playing a team sport, you learn how to communicate. You learn how to be a leader. You learn when you need to focus on your role. And you figure things out, right? Like we're playing a pickup game of basketball. We police ourselves and we've got to figure it out, right? There's no coach that's going to be able to tell us what to do. And that's the beauty about sport, is it teaches whatever we want it to teach. So what I'm so passionate about is like this skill about creativity is getting killed, right? Because what we do as parents and coaches, for that matter, is we joystick mentality, right? We're like, here's what you need to do, here's how you need to do it. When stuff goes bad, they can't figure it out. And I see it at the collegiate level now. They can't figure it out. When stuff starts to go bad, they've never had to figure it out. We've never asked them. We've just been giving them the answers all the time, saying, here's what you need to do in order to be successful. And it works up to where it doesn't work.
Right.
And you and I both know, I mean, sport is not going to go according to plan, no matter how well prepared you are. You have to be able to make adjustments. And that's the part about, we can play different sports. We figure these things out. And that's the part about being an athlete that's so important.
Definitely. I think it's obviously important to kind of understand what's going on mentally and how things are going, kind of understand your own thoughts and be able to take an inventory. But as you kind of start to work with an athlete from the very beginning, or you have someone, maybe they come into your office and they're brand new, they're looking to solve a problem, how would you kind of describe what you do or your training style to someone who has never worked with you before or known anyone else that has worked with you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think there are two types of players, right? There's going to be 8 out of 10 athletes that contact me have a problem. They have a pain, fix it. And that's fine, right? Like we get in there, we fix it. But then there's 2 out of 10 athletes that those are the ones I'm real passionate about, because these are the ones that, hey, I'm not reaching my full potential. I know I'm not, I'm still missing this. And the motivation's there. What can I do? And then from that, that's where we come up with that mental game plan. I mean, everybody's demon is a little bit different, So it never really comes. I mean, sometimes it comes back lack of motivation. I don't think that's it. Sometimes it's just that inner self-belief. Sometimes their focus gets off. Sometimes can't let go of mistakes. Sometimes they're not stubborn enough. Sometimes they're not coachable enough. So what is it that they need, and where do they want to go? To answer then that question, like where do we start? We always start with the building block, and that's that motivation. That always gets back to what's your why? Why do you play? I don't think a lot of times that they're really in touch with why do I play. Even if they are, their why has changed. So if it's a really good 16-year-old athlete, right, really good 16-year-old golfer, their why is not the same as what it was 3 years ago. It's not the same as what it was when they first started playing. They've got to be in touch with that, because when you come up with the why, you figure out the how. And that's the part where no matter what, we're always starting. And then are they willing to do the actions and behaviors and thoughts that get them where they want to go? So for example, keeping a notebook and keeping that journal is their ticket in to see me. Because if they're not keeping track of their thoughts and their feelings about when they're playing and when they're doing well, success leaves clues, right? I can't tell somebody who's shooting sub 70 how they should be thinking. I really can't. I'm not Nick Fowler, right? I've never done that. Now, I've competed my whole life, but still, even like finishing Ironman, that's not competing at the highest level of what Ironmans do, So they have to be able to coach themselves, and that's part of like what I think of any good mental coach is helping them figure out their own path. They have to be their own best coach. And even by having that notebook to be able to go back and look at it, what was I thinking when I was playing really well? What did happen when, I choked under pressure? Where did my mind go? What did I start thinking about? And then they start to then be able to coach themselves. That's basically all I do.
Awesome. And so when you have someone new come in, obviously it's different with everyone, but you said the first thing is trying to find your why. How difficult is that for some people to do? I mean, I think when you look at golf, but really any sport, whether they're pushed by their parent or they just do it because other people were doing it, some kids get very good and don't really even know like why they do it. They just kind of do it because they're told to.
Yeah. You know, and that's the thing. Like I try to tell them there's only one bad why. The only one bad why that I've ever come across is I'm good at it. And because that's a really, really dangerous spot, you get so good where now you can't quit.
Right.
Now you're trapped. You know, being able to navigate them through their why just always gets back to that. I think it goes 3 levels deep. I think if we really uncover it, it's going to get back to this is part of my identity. This is how people recognize me. And we want the pats in the back. You know, who doesn't want that? The only problem with that is it's not deep enough. You know, it only goes so deep. And so when you can then look at that, be like, you know what? Yeah, I do play because I like the adulation of walking on the course and having people recognize me. If we can get deeper than that, then they can reach their full potential. If that's it, then they've got to be able to go deeper. And that's the part where we really get into that whole mentality of why do I do what I do? Because there's not a more infectious drug than getting the pats on the back. Wow, like you're so good. That's so great. You know, success has 1,000 followers. You know, when you win, the amount of people that text you on how well you did is unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
How many people text you then when you don't play well? A couple. So failure is an orphan. And that's the part of we are who we are when we're alone. We really got to know what it is that and why we do what we do.
Awesome. Let's switch gears just a little bit more into like the mental toughness side of things. I know a couple of your books are focused almost solely around mental toughness. And obviously I think there's a lot of different perspectives, a lot of different views on it. Just kind of describe how you view mental toughness. Do you think some people are born into it? Do you think everyone has to develop it as a skill? How do you view mental toughness and what it kind of means to you and the training that you do?
Sure. I think a couple of things. One, mental toughness is not going to win anybody a championship. You know, you can be the most mentally tough player, but it's more of those, if you don't have it, it will lose it for you. I also look at mental toughness. I think there's a big stigma around it. I think mental toughness, when we think of that, we think 1, physical toughness, and 2, I've got to do it on my own. It's something I've just got to pick up my bootstraps and I've just got to plow through and do it. And I just don't agree with either of those. I think physical toughness is part of it, but I really think mental toughness is being able to ask for help. I think mental toughness is being able to say, look, coach, I'm struggling. I need some help. That's tougher than saying, no, I got this. Mental toughness, I think it's caught more than it's taught. So I think there's going to be that experience that now it becomes a fish or cut bait moment that we either are or we're not. And, you know, we're either going to keep persevering and have that persistence or we're not. We're going to pick a different path. And what I mean by that is, I mean, it might sound harsh, but every successful person I've come across, everyone without fail, you minus the absolute 0.0001%, right? So the names that you can think of, eliminate those, the best in any kind of sport. Every single one of them were told this. They were all told, that's a dumb idea. You can't do it. You're going to do something else. You're not going to be successful. They were all told that. I see it all the time, coach. So it's like, what did that do? Well, that was that moment where they're like, I'll show you. And then from that point on, then they've used that as like fuel. And now that's a motivation, right? But they all used that to their advantage. It didn't burn them up. What's the alternative? Man, you're right. I can't do it. So I kind of get off on those tangents, but it's like, look, with mental toughness, it's caught more than it's taught. Like that's going to be the piece where we're either going to get it or not. There's no way you can be mentally tough without facing that adversity. I just don't see it happening. So when we can experience these adverse moments as we're growing up, that's going to teach us more about ourselves. And then when we get in more pressure situations, we know where our mind's going to go. You know, we know how to be able to handle these kind of situations. The other part about mental toughness, I mean, I can talk for hours on that. It's not all or nothing. You know, too many people think it's all or nothing. Like I either have it or I don't. It's a wrong way to think about it. It's how much. You know, some people are really good at letting go of mistakes, right? Some people are really good at never giving up. So there's a lot of different factors that kind of go into it. And I look at it like you got to know what your strength is on mental toughness and then be able to utilize that and tap into that skill.
Awesome. Getting a little bit more specific with some of the stuff that I know you're doing, one of the things that you're really big on is the hinge moments. Just talk a little bit about what that is, what you would define as a hinge moment, and then why they're so important as you kind of look at the players and people that you work with.
No, and I appreciate you setting me up for that, man. That's where I look right. So every door has a hinge. A door without a hinge is a wall. It just doesn't work. So with the hinges in our lives, like if we hear about a door opening and closing, if we hear about a rusty door, it's not the door that's rusty, it's the hinge. So what the hinge is, the hinge in our lives, it's that one moment, it's that one person, or sometimes that one decision that can make all the difference. So it connects who we are with who we become. Problem is we just don't know when that's coming. Tragedies, the really bad stuff that happens in our lives, those are immediate hinges because from that moment on, everything's different. But the beauty about mental toughness, and when I look at the importance of it, and even mental strength and mental health, right? It only takes one. It takes one shot to turn around a tournament, right? It takes one blade of grass to hold that ball up. It takes one tournament to turn around a season, one season to turn around a whole career. That's what we're getting ready for. We just don't know when that's coming. So that's the whole importance of mental toughness, is we're always preparing for those moments that we don't know what it's going to look like or when it's going to hit. We might not even know right then is when it happened, till weeks, months, years later. But that's what we're preparing for, is those moments. So when that moment hits, it's too late to prepare. Like, we've got to be ready.
Awesome.
That's what the hinge is on.
Yeah. And then just talk a little bit about maybe one of your favorite hinge moments, whether it's your own or somebody that you've worked with without naming any names, but just like a cool story where you kind of saw that all come to fruition and something that happened that you were like, wow, this is so cool. Like kind of that moment.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's famous examples. I could think of some of my personal, I've got some that I always share. I could think of some of my athletes I've got in, some of their hinge moments. I'll share a professional one. So I'll share one that everyone can relate to. So is this one, and this is okay, quick story?
Yep.
All right, quick story. The best basketball coach of all time. Who is it?
I'm
switching it on you, right?
Yeah.
Best basketball coach of all time.
That's a broad question. I'm going to say Mike Krzyzewski, but I don't know if that's right.
What about dead?
Still a tough question.
88 straight wins, 10 national championships.
John Wooden.
Okay, so
Sorry.
John Wooden.
Yeah, that's my fault.
Oh, we're in Indiana. I thought it was my bad.
No, you're good. That's my fault.
I don't like flipping the script on that. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Keep me on my toes.
So John Wooden, right, is an Indiana guy. So he finishes up at Purdue, and he's going to be the head coach at Minnesota. So he's a Midwest guy, right? His wife wants him to stay in the Midwest. He's going to get a call from Minnesota at 5 o'clock. Now he's going to get a call at 6 o'clock from the school out west, UCLA. And at 6 o'clock, he's going to turn him down. So he had this all set up. 5 o'clock comes, there's no call. 5:30, 5:45 comes. 6 o'clock comes, there's a call. It's UCLA saying, Coach Wooden, we want you to be the head coach of UCLA. Figuring that Minnesota backed out, he says, I accept. 6:15 comes, and there's a call. It's University of Minnesota saying, Coach Wooden, we're so sorry. There's a blizzard up here. Our university official could not get to the phone. We still want you to be the head coach of Minnesota. And being the man of integrity that he is, he says, I'm sorry, I already accepted the job at UCLA. So, bam, hinge moment, right? So he said, if God hadn't intervened, I would have been the head coach of Minnesota. Well, there's so many layers to that, because would it have still been the same? Well, what if never happened? He wasn't the coach at Minnesota. He was the head coach at UCLA, so we don't know that stuff. And the other part is like, what he said. There are these moments that we can't predict. But if he would have reneged from that commitment, would have still been the same, And that's where, you look back at, Tom Brady's career, so many hinge moments in that one, right? That to be the greatest of all time, things have to go your way. So I love that one, because that's always like an amazing hinge moment.
Yeah, that's so cool. I didn't actually know that story, so
Yeah.
it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, let's switch more to the focus of the podcast a little bit, to the golf side of things specifically. Talk a little bit just in general. I know obviously you hear everyone say how important the mental side of it is, but in your estimation, obviously doing the things that you're doing, just kind of describe the importance of the mental side of game to golf, especially golf at the highest level.
Man, I mean, golf at the highest level, the better we get, the more important the mental game becomes. And then I think the better we get at the highest level, I think mental toughness is more important off the course than it is on the course. And what I mean by that is even all the preparation that we do, being able to time management, being able to not focus on the expectations of the pressure, and then just being able to play. Then a lot of distractions I have. People always want just 5 minutes of your time. That leads up a lot. So I always think that the better we get, the more important mental toughness is off the field than it is on. The other part of mental toughness, I mean, one of the big misnomers I always hear is that sports is 90% mental. I disagree with that. I don't like that one. It gets thrown around all the time. Why do I disagree with it? Because I think it's 90% physical. I really do. Now, what that means is that I'm watching something physical happen. Like I'm watching people hit the golf ball. I'm watching their mechanics. How do they practice? They're practicing 90% physically too. So why do I say that? Because what I think it is, I think that last 10% is mental. But if that last 10% isn't solid, it doesn't matter how good the 90% is. So they can have the whole 90%, but that last 10%, that's what unlocks the other 90. And that's what I look at. Look, it's 10%, but it's the most important 10%. And that's the part where I look at it as, how important that mental game becomes. Because let's face it, man, if the drive in there, if the confidence in there, the self-belief, if the focus isn't there, under stress and under duress, if you can't let go of mistakes, doesn't matter how good the 90% is. It's not going to come out.
Definitely. Talk a little bit about maybe some of the common things that you see in golfers. I know, like, for example, if we look at the golf swing, most golfers fall into the same categories and swing characteristics. If we look at more my side of things with the golf fitness side of things, you see a lot of the same body limitations when it comes to golfers because of the repetitive nature of the swing and all the different things. Is it similar on the mental side too? Can you see there are certain things maybe that golfers tend to struggle with a little bit more just in general?
I mean, I think so. One way or another, it always gets back to confidence. It really does. And confidence, again, it's not all or nothing, right? It's not I have it or I don't, but that's the way they think about it a lot. And so what I mean is that, there are some athletes that are just overthinkers. There are some athletes that, really do not let go of shots well. Well, why do I say that's an indication of confidence? Because if you show me an athlete that's really confident, I'm going to show you somebody that lets go of mistakes. They don't let go of mistakes because they believe that everything has to go my way in order for me to play well. So with that confidence, it's just having that underlying belief that I'm going to be able to focus and be able to execute my game plan. I don't have any control over the results, but that's the part of having confidence in the things that we can control. One way or another, it always gets back to that. Body language gets back to confidence, or focus gets back to confidence. And the way that we get confidence through our focus. So how we focus is what builds our confidence, and then how we refocus is what just reveals our level of confidence. So it always gets back to that. What do athletes think about when they're playing their best, right? Nothing. Well, then why are we trying to fill it with a whole bunch of things when we're just not feeling our best? So that's the part where it gets back to that belief, that trust in ourselves.
Awesome. Talk a little bit about maybe how you train or how you work on some of the skills that are required to be able to have that mental toughness, to be able to have that confidence. What are some of the things that you do with your clients to kind of help them get to that next level?
Well, I always say we play like we train. And so how are we approaching life? How are we approaching our sport? One of the things I mentioned earlier is just with that notebook. That notebook is just a baseline. It's something that everybody can do. But are they really keeping track of my success leaves clues, my behaviors, my thoughts when things are going well? it's a lot of time, it's this mental game is about subtraction and is addition. We're just trying to remove stuff that doesn't help. That's always a big one, man. I mean, working on the focus skills, how do we focus under pressure? And then no matter what, it's just how do we navigate that when we do fail? Every pro athlete that I've worked with has failed under high stress environments. You don't get to that level without having that. So when we fail along the way, like, is this a bruise or is it a tattoo? Is this something permanent, or is it just on the path to be able to get to where we want to go? Because no one wants to fail, and it's really, really painful, but that's the only way to be successful. So what I see is that those that fail, they don't allow it to get to their heart. They don't allow it to affect that confidence so deep to where now they can't be successful. And that's the key.
Definitely. Are you spending a lot of time with your golfers on the course, on the practice tee? Are you doing most of your stuff in the office? Where are you kind of spending your time when you're working with these players?
Well, with my pros, man, I mean, it's a little bit of everything, but I mean, I always like to tell them, like, I want the office, man. I want to be on the golf course. That's the best office there is, right? But just being able to walk that journey with them as well. And be able to walk practice rounds with them is important. That's why I've caddied so many times. I like to, I love to compete, man. So, I mean, I love being in the mix, and I always think it's not so much what happens like in the sessions or in those conversations. It's just the side notes. And when you can see things that bother them, why does that bother you? The most difficult thing is, like, I can't coach myself. Maybe you can. I can't coach myself,
No.
But if I can have somebody on that journey with me, it's the same thing as what I'm doing.
Yeah.
We can be on that journey with them. It's just somebody that can help ask the right questions and help them reflect and coach themselves.
Definitely. That's awesome. So are you playing golf yourself these days? Do you like to get out and play a little bit?
Man, I do. I love it. And my son, I love it, and it is the most difficult thing for me as well, because I struggle with the refocus one. I don't struggle with never giving up. I don't struggle with the preparation. But, I can go for a 15-mile run. It could be a bad run. I'm still going to feel good at the end of that. I go and I play and I shoot 86. I don't feel good about it at all, But what keeps me there is because of the challenge. And my son is really getting into golf, and it's so much fun to be able to go on that journey with him. So yeah, I mean, when the weather certainly gets nice, but same thing, I got to make it a priority.
Definitely.
To do it.
Definitely. That's so cool. And I think it's really awesome too. A lot of the people that we've had on the podcast, whether it's fitness professionals or instructors, I think it's so important for you to be able to go through those same experiences as well. For me as a college coach, I know it's a super big benefit for me to still be competing in tournaments, because I know what my players feel like when they step on the first tee and they're super nervous, or they come down the stretch with a chance to win. And so definitely love to see people in the business still getting out and playing golf, because it's a very easy thing to tell someone to do something, but when you get out there and have to experience it yourself, there's a lot of times where you're like, oh, this isn't as easy as I think it should be.
I mean, it's the toughest sport that there is, no question.
Awesome. So tell me a story real quick, dig into the memory bank. Talk about one of the coolest experiences that you've had the chance to do as a result of the work that you do. Could be in any sport with any athlete, or just any situation in general, but just based off of the career you've had, the things you've been able to do, and the people you've been able to meet. What's one of the coolest experiences you got a chance to be a part of?
Man, I mean, spend an entire day with Tom Watson on the course, watching him play, watching him gamble and win, was great. But the best experience professionally was just having my player win on the PGA Tour, and then spending the whole week at the Masters. And this is how incredible it was. Like, every single day I got to ride up Magnolia Lane. I mean, it's a sacred place, And this is how great it was. The very last day, makes a cut, plays, finishes 25th, plays great. And the very last day, we're all going our separate ways, so I had to go in general parking. And I was like, man, this sucks, dude. That's how incredible the experience was, right? Like, imagine complaining that. Now, I didn't complain long, but it's like, man, dude, I really got to see general parking. I'm going to be back, man, where players are parking. Like, that's the best. But just to be at the Masters, the entire week was probably the best professionally.
Awesome. And we'll get into more of your content stuff a little bit later, but real quick, just want to talk on your podcast, 15 Minutes of Mental Toughness.
Yeah.
I know I enjoy listening to it quite a bit, but just talk a little bit about kind of what it's about, what you talk about, some of your guests maybe, and then some of the things you just enjoy about creating the podcast and being able to be a part of that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Vince. I mean, what I talk about is just mental toughness, define it for us. What is it? And then talk about your hinge moments. So, I mean, I speak with anyone from, triathletes, Ironmen, people that have won the PGA Tour, coaches, caddies. That's who I usually talk with, is just athletes, coaches. And I mean, it's the variety of, so many different fields, and there's always that common theme amongst mental toughness, and that's how we deal with that adversity. And I love it. I just love being able to share the stories about people that have overcome these significant challenges, or that have set these challenges for themselves and they've achieved it, and what that whole process was. I mean, my favorite part about it, though, is just being able to learn from them, because I love interviewing people. Well, let's just go ahead and make this podcast from it. And it was always an idea. I always felt I was late to the podcast game. But just be able to have those intimate conversations with people, I think is so much fun.
Yeah, definitely. It's so cool. And I think for me personally, like obviously being a coach who's a little bit younger and all the things that I've kind of done, one of the ways that I really tried to learn a lot was just through talking to other people. And I think it's kind of the same thing now that I've started the podcast and doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just getting to talk to people and learn helps me get better as a coach, but also helps me get better in my golf game and all the other things. So it's definitely been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. So we're on to a section of the show we like to do now called the Twilight Nine. So a little bit more fun. We compare it to trying to get out on a summer's evening and play 9 holes before the sun sets. So 9 questions.
It's a great time.
It is, yeah. 9 questions, rapid fire. First thing that pops into your head, just go ahead and spout it off. Lowest tournament score?
Lowest tournament score was a 78.
Okay. Go-to pre-round meal?
Chick-fil-A.
Nice. Favorite on-course snack?
Chick-fil-A. Or I would go, some kind of protein, man.
Yeah.
Peanuts, probably.
Pre-gym, or for you, I know you do a lot of triathletes, so workout pump-up song.
So my song, and this is before I ever speak or anything like that, and it's changed a little bit, right? But my song is Waiting Room by Fugazi.
Okay.
Yeah. So any of the listeners go and get that one. That's so important.
Your hardest or your least favorite exercise in the gym? You get to choose which one.
So my hardest exercise is not my least favorite. They're just, I do everything from pull-ups to push-ups, to core work, to swimming, to biking and running. The only part that I don't do is, and this would be like some of my weightlifters really get mad at this, but I just don't do squats anymore, and I don't do hang cleans. I don't do those, because those are just tough. Those are probably it. Those are the ones that I don't do. Those are full body. But.
Definitely. All right, so get to the course. 5 minutes before your tee time, what do you do before you head to the first tee?
Just ask them what the course record is, what the first tee is, man.
Nice.
You just chill. Just
I love it. I love it. What's your golf brand of choice?
My golf brand of choice would be Second Guy Golf.
Okay. What's the best movie of all time?
The best movie of all time? Can it be a couple?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Best movie of all time is The Natural, and Casino.
Okay. And then what's your favorite sports team?
Any team that's hired me.
Love it.
Is my favorite.
Love it. Awesome. That is our Twilight Nine, a fun little segment we like to have on the show just to help the people get to know you a little bit better, get to understand you. Real quick, before we let you go, A couple questions just to really try to help the listeners out. What's your number one advice for junior golfers and their parents? What are you I know you're doing some stuff with that right now with some speaking engagements and stuff like that. So what's your advice to them? What are you really trying to focus on when you go talk to them?
It is a big passion of mine. The thing is, it's not who gets there first, it's who can get there and stay there. So, if your kid hasn't even reached puberty, you don't know how good they're going to be. And you still don't know how good somebody's going to be until they kind of have that hinge moment. So we got to be able to trust that process and just stay focused on getting better every day. That's it. Don't worry about winning rankings or stroke average. Certainly not stroke average ever.
Awesome. And then what is your advice for players who are looking to kind of take their game to the next level, whether it's a high school player looking to play in college or a college player looking to play professionally, or even just your kind of weekend warrior who's looking to get into single-digit handicap for the first time? What's your advice to help you on the golf course?
Well, two things. I think, one, like, the better we get, the mental toughness is more important off of it. I'd ask them this question: what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up? Because something has to give up if you want to reach your full potential, period. There's no way around it, you know. And that's not bad. That's just got to be willing to give that up. Because to reach the level that you want to reach your full potential, you have to do it every day, and you have to love to do it. If you don't love to do it, don't do it, because, I mean, it'll just wear you down, and at some point, and then you just throw up your hands and say, I quit.
Awesome. Appreciate you coming on the podcast so much. Real quick before we let you go, just let people know where they can follow along with you, where they can see some of your content and be able to kind of catch up with what you're doing.
Sure, man. I mean, the podcast, 15 Minutes of Mental Toughness, on Twitter, you know, it's at Dr. Rob Bell, Instagram. And then my website is just drrobbell.com.
Awesome. All of Dr. Rob's stuff will be in the description box down below on the YouTube video. Once again, just thank you so much for coming on. It was a lot of fun and really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode. Big thank you to Dr. Rob for helping us out, for letting us come into his office and record a podcast. Really excited to be able to continue to follow along with him on social media, as well as his 15 Minutes of Mental Toughness podcast. Also, if you guys are interested in getting better at the mental side of things, be sure to hit up Dr. Rob, whether that's through his website or through his Instagram. Also, be sure that you read some of his books. Like I said, he has 6 books out, and they're all really good, very good, and helpful when it comes to mental toughness, when it comes to understanding how to be a better player and how to have more confidence in yourself. He also has his latest book out, No One Gets There Alone, which talks about building your team, which is what we talk about a lot on the channel, having a team that's going to support you and help you get better. So thank you guys so much for tuning into the episode. Thank you guys for the continued support. Really excited that we've been able to have some great guests on. This is the end of season 1, and so we're going to take a few weeks off from uploading the podcast just so that we can get it transformed into all audio version, and then from there we'll be up and running again in 2 weeks, starting episode 2, which is episode 13 of Making the Turn. It's been an awesome first season. Can't thank you guys enough for the support. Really look forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. This is Vince Drum and Golf. I'm out of here.